This is the school food waste and composting training. Let's dive in with Corey, the compost worm.
There are a number of things to think about before starting a composting program at your school. Understanding your whys, wheres, and hows will help you choose a system most likely to succeed. Before you begin, it's important to get buy-in from a number of people. I often help groups think this through by doing an asset mapping exercise, which is really just a way to brainstorm all the different groups of people who you might want to involve. For schools, this includes teachers, administrators, students, cafeteria staff or your food service people, facility and maintenance staff for sure, school board members, parents, nurses, and maybe the librarian. It can also be helpful to think even broader than this. Are there outreach folks from your solid waste management entity who may have programs to help schools start compost programs? Are there farmers nearby who could be a source for feedstocks like manure or animal bedding, or possibly a place to divert some of your organic waste to? Are there university extension workers who could be a resource for you, or master composters or other community volunteers? This exercise will help you form a core team. As you think through this, note down when you need to bring different people into your process. For example, if you think your administration or school board might not be easily convinced about the project, it might be good to have a fuller plan in place before presenting it to them. Or you may not want to reach out to the wider community until you have made some other decisions about what system you'll use, how the program may or may not integrate into the wider community, what it will look like, where it'll be sited, all of these different concerns. It's also important to understand your goals or vision for establishing a composting program at your school. Is the main purpose to divert the school's organic waste stream from the landfill? If so, this project will likely manifest very differently than if an equal goal is to engage the students in compost management as part of your teaching curriculum. If you are gearing your project to be part of your curriculum, this might include all the sciences, ecology, biology, chemistry, physics, a focus on climate change, math, behavioral sciences, like considering waste reduction, source separation, or shifting cultural norms. It might also expand to include communications and PR, graphic design, or small business development. Another thing to think about is if your school already has a garden. Often there's a nice pairing of adding a compost system to an established garden, further closing that food loop for your school. As you think through all of these different questions, ask yourself if this is something that you can manage in your class, or if you need to form a team of teachers to help manage your project. Other important things to think about and to have a good understanding of include the geography and land use of where your school is. What is the school property like? Is there adequate space on site for a composting operation? Or is there a nearby property that could potentially partner with you in this project? Keep in mind, though, that the broader reaching your group becomes, the more challenging it may be to coordinate. It's also good to understand the current land use and possibly what's allowed in your area in terms of zoning or other regulatory considerations, and whether or not there are waterways that you need to be aware of, or neighbors to the school property who need to be considered. All of this needs to be paired with an understanding of the volume of your organic waste stream, what portion of it you're hoping to manage on site, and what the other options are for diverting it from the landfill. We'll be talking a little bit about some of these other options later in this training. Before presenting the project to others, it's helpful to think through the whys and why nots, or the pros and cons of different options you may have come up with when going through the above steps. While the whys may be pretty clear to you, can you anticipate some of the reservations that others in the school or in your broader community might have? These often start with pretty common fears about composting in terms of potentially attracting rats, bears, or other unwanted wildlife onto the school property, worries about bad smells and possible complaints from the school community or neighbors, or even just concerns about the amount of work and coordination this project will take. The responsibility, really, of managing a compost site well. But you know your school and community best. Which of these issues, or what other sticking points, can you anticipate? Having constructive responses to these at the beginning of the conversation usually allays fears and can often smooth the waters for moving your project forward. We've provided you some resources and worksheets to help you think through all of these topics we just talked about. As you develop your compost plan, it's good to think about your goals. I encourage people to start by brainstorming. this can be done individually or as a group. When I'm facilitating this conversation with a compost team, I often use the 1-2-4-all technique, where each person takes a few minutes to jot down what their goals are for the site, and then they pair up and share with one other person, and then in groups of 4, and then with the whole group. This can be modified, of course, depending on how many people are on your planning team. I like this technique, especially for larger groups, because some people appreciate having a few minutes to gather their thoughts before being put on the spot. It also ensures participation from everyone. Once you have your list of goals, where are the commonalities? Were they all along the same lines? Were there some that were unique? Are some further reaching and some more immediate? Label or color code them into categories of short and long-term goals. If you used the 1-2-4-all method, you can also use sticky notes and then just rearrange the goals by moving the notes around. Next, turn your attention to the near-term goals. Are they SMART? That's the acronym we use for goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. For each of the goals on your list, work through the SMART acronym and see if you can make them clearer. We've provided a short handout about SMART goal setting that you can refer to as you work with your group and your school through this process.